Section 1, Article 15 states, "The right of citizens of the United States to vote shall not be denied or abridged by the United States or by any state on account of race, color, or previous condition of servitude." Section 2, Article 15 states, "The Congress shall have power to enforce this article by appropriate legislation."
The Amendment made it illegal to keep people who are citizens of the United States from voting regardless of their race.
I think that the 15th Amendment was meant to be for equality, for, all men are created equal.
The 15th Amendment passed 128 years before my birthday, on February 26, 1869. This was a few days before Andrew Johnson's end of presidency. This was about 4 years after the Civil War ended, and radicals, a group of men, were unhappy about President Johnson's leniency toward the Confederate leaders. They wanted to punish the South for causing war, or were concerned with the safety of the freed men, or wanted to keep the Republican Party in power in both the northern and southern states.
I believe that the 15th Amendment was created because although the African slaves at that time had been freed by Abraham Lincoln and the Civil War was over, the South was still refusing to treat these people as citizens, and so the government was trying to establish that every man in that case have the right to vote then.
The amendment was ratified on February 3, 1870. 28 out of 37 states needed to ratify the amendment. Nevada was one of the first to send its ratification of the amendment. Some past Confederate states weren't as fast to send their ratification of the amendment, for freed men were already under other acts that helped gain their freedom. These acts were called the Reconstruction Act. Ulysses S. Grant was a president for about a year when the 15th Amendment was ratified. He was a general in the Civil War, and he believed in the freeing of slaves. President Grant told Congress in his 8th message, "I repeat that the adoption of the 15th Amendment to the Constitution completes the greatest civil change and constitutes the most important event that has occurred since the nation came into life." Ulysses S. Grant. After the 15th Amendment was ratified in 1860, a group called the Ku Klux Klan, or the Klux, or KKK, or also called the Circle of Brothers, was formed. This group was against the Reconstruction era, so they would target freedmen and their allies. Later on, in the early 1870s, this group died out for a while.
One group of people believes that others should not have equal rights, or if one group of people believes that other people are not educated enough to make decisions, then they might try to keep them from voting. Also, if people, there's been experiences where some group tries to keep others from voting because they want their ideas to pass.
Legally segregated South. So the 15th Amendment is a piece of paper. It's noble in process and thought, and it is not entirely enforced. Mississippi leads the way. They create black codes which restrict the ability of people to vote. And I know the 15th Amendment says, "You shall not restrict the rights of Americans to vote regardless of race, color, or previous condition of servitude." Mississippi passes a series of laws that says, in order to vote, your grandfather had to have been free. This is called the Grandfather Clause. In 1877, if you were going to go vote, your grandfather, and you were black, your grandfather was probably a slave. So the 15th Amendment is a wonderful thing. It is not enforced. And so it does not create equality everywhere it goes. A piece of paper is a piece of paper. It takes people willing to fight for equality.
African Americans would seek help to secure their rights with organizations like NAACP, National Association for the Advancement of Colored People, and the National Urban League. President Johnson urged Congress on March 15, 1965 to pass legislation so it would be practically impossible to thwart the 15th Amendment.
I speak tonight for the dignity of man and the destiny of democracy. I urge every member of both parties, Americans of all religions and of all colors, from every section of this country, to join me in that cause. At times, history and fate meet at a single time, in a single place, to shape a turning point in man's unending search for freedom. So it was at Lexington and Concord.
It's been about 50 years since President Johnson has given that speech, and since then, many things have changed in our culture. But has equality under the 15th Amendment changed?
I think that the 15th Amendment was meant to be for equality, for, you know, all men are created equal. It's something that's been said for many, many years, and the 15th Amendment, I think, reaffirmed that.
In 220 years, we have only amended this document 17 times, and only for the most serious of matters. Consider what our amendments have done. They have ended the practice of slavery. They have established the principle of equal protection.
Establishing equality, I think that the 15th Amendment was a stepping stone. I think that humans don't generally change that quickly on their own.
With the 1964 Civil Rights Act and the 1965 Voting Rights Act, the federal government said, okay, the 15th Amendment exists, and if states violate it, we, the federal government, will come in and put them right. And this is, you know, this creates huge fights. I
believe that the 15th Amendment is a great amendment because it opens up doors of equality to new immigrants as well as the freed men back in the 1860s. Even though the 15th Amendment faced many obstacles, what's a journey without its walls?